Earth, Sun and Moon. The Sun, its planets, their satellites like the Moon are called the celestial bodies. These form the solar system. In this chapter, let us learn more about the beauty beyond the sky. Let us explore the solar system. The solar system consists of the Sun, planets, comets, asteroids, and dwarf planets. The planets in the solar system revolve around the Sun in fixed paths called orbits. The planets have satellites revolving around them. There are 8 planets in the solar system. They are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Pluto was earlier considered a planet, but now it has been named as a dwarf planet by the International Astronomical Union in 2006. Mercury is the smallest planet and the planet closest to the Sun. Venus is the hottest and the brightest planet. Earth is called the blue planet. It is the only planet that supports life. Mars is called the red planet. The largest planet is Jupiter. Saturn has rings around it. It is the second largest planet in the solar system. The planet farthest from the Sun is Neptune. Uranus is the coldest planet. Earth. Earth is the third planet from the Sun in the solar system. It has air, water and soil. The Earth is surrounded by a thick blanket of air known as atmosphere. It protects us from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the Sun. The Earth's surface has mountains, valleys, rivers, seas and oceans. The inner part of the Earth has 3 major layers: crust, mantle and core. Crust. The crust is the outermost solid part of the Earth. It is fragile. The thickness of the crust varies under the oceanic and continental areas. The crust is made up of heavier rocks. The kind of rock seen in the oceanic crust is basalt. Silica, Si and aluminium, Ai, are major constituent minerals. Its thickness is 5 km. Mantle. The portion of the interior beyond the crust is called the mantle. Its thickness is 2900 km. It is in a solid state. The asthenosphere is the upper portion of the mantle. The crust and the uppermost part of the mantle are called the lithosphere. The major constituent elements of the mantle are silicon and magnesium. Core. It is the innermost layer of the Earth. It consists of 2 layers, outer core and inner core. The outer core is around 2200 km thick. It is rich iron and nickel in a molten state. The inner core is around 1220 km thick and is a solid ball of mostly iron. The inner core is in the solid state, whereas the outer core is in the liquid state. Sun. The Sun is the closest star to the Earth. It is a huge ball of burning gases. It is almost 109 times the size of our Earth. The Sun's mass is over 99% of the total mass of the solar system. The thin outer layer of the Sun is called corona and the central part is called core. The main gases found in the Sun are hydrogen and helium. In the core, hydrogen is continuously converted into helium, and during this a lot of light and heat energy are released. This is called solar energy. The temperature of the Sun's surface is around 6000 degrees Celsius. Solar energy is a renewable source of energy. Moon. The Moon is the natural satellite of the Earth. A natural satellite is a heavenly body that revolves around a planet. The Moon rotates on its axis and revolves around the Earth. It takes around 27 days to complete one revolution of the Earth. The Moon appears to be the brightest object in the night sky, but it is a non-luminous object. It reflects the light of the Sun, which is known as moonlight. The Moon is about 384,400 km from the Earth. Surface of the Moon. The surface of the Moon has many craters, lava plains, mountains and valleys. The surface of the Moon is rocky and covered with dust. It has a very thin atmosphere which is almost non-existent, and there is no water on it. Since there is no water, clouds do not form on the Moon and there is no rain. It is very hot during the day and freezing cold at night. The footprints left by the astronauts when they stepped on the moon will remain visible for millions of years because no weathering is seen on the moon. Landing on the moon. Apollo 11, the American spacecraft, landed on the moon on the 20 July 1969. Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin and Michael Collins traveled to the moon in that spacecraft. Neil Armstrong was the first man to land on the moon, followed by Edwin Aldrin. Michael Collins remained in the spacecraft to keep in touch with the connecting space center on Earth. Apollo 11 revolving around the moon. Apollo on the moon. Phases of the moon. As the moon orbits the Earth, half of the moon that faces the sun is lit. The different shapes of the lit portion of the moon that can be seen from the Earth are called the phases of the moon. Only one face that we see is lit. The other side is always dark. A new moon is when the moon has the lit surface opposite to the Earth. This is called a new moon or a no moon. It happens when the moon is directly between the Earth and the sun. The crescent moon is when the moon looks like the crescent and the size of the crescent increases day by day. Half moon is when half of the moon is lit. The waxing gibbous moon occurs when the moon is more than half moon and its shape keeps on increasing. A full moon is when we can see the entire moon lit up. It occurs when the moon is on the opposite side of the Earth from the sun. The moon after full moon begins to reduce in size. This is called waning of the moon. The waning moon goes through the gibbous, half moon and crescent stages. New moon, waning crescent, third quarter, waning gibbous, full moon, waxing gibbous, first quarter, waxing crescent. Eclipses. Eclipse means to hide. Eclipses are formed when the shadow of heavenly bodies is cast on one another. Sometimes the sun, moon and earth come in one straight line. These times the earth comes in between the sun and the moon, and sometimes the moon comes in between the sun and the earth. During this, the celestial body that is in the middle casts its shadow, which can partly or wholly hide the other object from the sun. This is when an eclipse occurs. Lunar eclipse. When the sun, the earth and moon are in a straight line, with the earth in between the sun and the moon, the shadow of the earth is cast on the moon. This is called a lunar eclipse. A full lunar eclipse is seen if the entire moon becomes dark, and a partial eclipse is seen only if a portion of it is covered. Solar eclipse. When the sun, moon and the earth come in a straight line, the shadow of the moon falls on the earth. This is called the solar eclipse. This too could be partial or total. During a partial solar eclipse, a part of the sun is seen. During a total solar eclipse, the sun cannot be seen at all. It always takes place on a new moon day. Safety during eclipses. There are certain precautions to be taken during eclipses. During a solar eclipse, especially the total solar eclipse, never look at the sun directly. Use protective glasses to view the sun. The solar eclipses offer the best chance to study the corona of the sun, but care has to be taken while viewing the sun. During new moon days, there are very heavy tides called spring tides in the seas and oceans. One must avoid going into these water bodies for fishing or swimming. Artificial satellites. Artificial satellites are man-made bodies that are sent into space to orbit the Earth. They orbit in the thermosphere layer. Most artificial satellites are launched into space by powerful rockets to escape from the force of gravity. The first artificial satellite was Sputnik 1. It was launched in 1957 by the Soviet Union. The first Indian satellite launched was Aryabhatta, followed by Bhaskar, Rohini, Apple, INSAT-1B and INSAT-2B, IRS-1A and GSAT. Nowadays, India is sending many satellites in a single go. India sent record-breaking 104 satellites using PSLV in 2007. Artificial satellites have many purposes. Scientific research. Scientific satellites collect information about space. The Hubble Space Telescope is a scientific satellite that orbits around the Earth. It sees the sky more clearly than telescopes on the ground. Communication satellites. Communication satellites help send telephone calls, radio and television programs and computer information all over the world. Navigation. Airplanes, ships and cars with special equipment can use information from satellites to find the way from place to place. Military. The military use satellites for spying and safeguarding their posts. Weather forecast. Satellites are used in the study and forecasting of weather. Space travel. Man's curiosity has led to an increased interest in space travel. Initially, only some developed countries were doing this, but nowadays many more countries are investing huge amounts on space research. People who go to space are called astronauts. The first man to travel space was Yuri Gagarin, and the first woman was Valentina Tereshkova, Russia. The first Indian to travel in space was squadron leader Rakesh Sharma. Kalpana Chawla was the first woman of Indian origin to go into space. Sunita Williams completed 4 spacewalks and spent 29 hours 17 minutes. Squadron leader Rakesh Sharma, Kalpana Chawla, Sunita Williams.